Hey guys, tonight our story takes us back to ancient China, to a time of immense conflict, of breathtaking ambition, and of one of the most obsessive and terrifying quests in human history. We are journeying to the court of the man who would become the first emperor of China, Qin Shi Huang. He was a ruler who conquered kingdoms, unified a nation, and built the Great Wall. But there was one enemy he could not defeat: his own mortality. We are going to explore his disturbing, lifelong, and ultimately fatal obsession with achieving immortality and avoiding the curses of his many enemies. Now for our little reality check. For most of us, the goal is to live a long and happy life. For the first emperor of China, the goal was to live a long and happy life, and then just keep living. Forever. His attempts to achieve this were not just a passing fancy, they were a massive, state-sponsored project that involved alchemy, dangerous mineral elixirs, vast sea expeditions in search of mythical islands, and some very questionable health supplements. It was a quest that would shape the fate of an empire. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Your support is the elixir of life that keeps this channel running. And as always, I love to know where you're joining me from. So please post your city and your local time in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your world is one of quiet mountains, of misty valleys, and of the subtle, shifting balance of the Tao. You are a young alchemist, a follower of the way, living a simple and reclusive life in a small hermitage. Your time is not governed by the laws of men, but by the rhythms of nature. You spend your days gathering herbs, studying the ancient texts of the masters, and tending to your furnace, where you seek not to turn the lead into gold, but to understand the secret, inner life of the elements. The dance of yin and yang that is the foundation of the universe. You are a scholar of transformation, a seeker of harmony. The world outside your peaceful mountain retreat is a world of chaos and war. It is the end of the Warring States period. The land is a fractured chessboard of rival kingdoms, all locked in a brutal, centuries-long struggle for supremacy, but one kingdom. The state of Qin in the west is ascendant. It is a ruthless, efficient, and militaristic state, governed by the cold, practical philosophy of legalism, which values the power of the state above all else. One day, the world of the state comes crashing into your world of quiet contemplation. A contingent of black-clad Qin soldiers, their faces grim and impassive, arrives at your humble hermitage. They are led by a court official who holds a bamboo scroll bearing the seal of the king. Your reputation, it seems, has reached the ears of the most powerful man in the known world, Ying, the young and ambitious king of Qin. He has heard that you possess a rare knowledge of the secret properties of minerals and herbs, that you are a master of the alchemical arts. The scroll is not an invitation, it is a summons. You are to report to the capital city of Zhenyang immediately. Refusal is not an option. You're a Taoist alchemist. You live a simple life of quiet contemplation, communing with nature, and occasionally trying to turn lead into gold. It's a peaceful existence. Right up until the most powerful and paranoid king in the world decides you're going to be his new head of supernatural research and development. The journey to the Qin capital is a jarring immersion into a different way of being. You travel on new, brutally straight roads, built for the swift movement of armies. You see the immense scale of the Qin public works, all constructed by vast armies of conscripted laborers, their faces blank with exhaustion. This is the world of legalism, a world of absolute order, achieved at the cost of all human freedom and spontaneity. It is the very opposite of the gentle, harmonious path of the Tao. The palace at Xianyang is not a place of beauty and art. It is a vast, imposing fortress, a labyrinth of high walls and heavily guarded courtyards, designed to project power and to protect a king who knows he is surrounded by enemies. The court is very efficient and very serious. The art on the walls is mostly maps of places they plan to conquer. The music is mostly military marching drums. You decide to keep a low profile. You are brought before the king. Yingzheng is a young man, but he carries himself with an aura of immense, intimidating power. His eyes are dark, intelligent, and restless. And in their depths, you see the flicker of a single, all-consuming fear. You are the alchemist, he says. His voice a statement, not a question. You are a man who understands the art of transformation. I have a great work for you. I am in the process of conquering the other kingdoms. I will unite all under heaven into a single empire. I will become the first emperor. He pauses, his gaze intense. I can conquer the world of men, but I will not be conquered by death. That is an enemy I cannot defeat with my armies. He commissions you. He gives you your great and impossible task. You are to lead his court alchemist in the search for the Xiandan, the great elixir of immortality. You are to use your knowledge to make him a mortal man, a god. Future historians will debate the nature of his obsession. Was it a genuine superstitious belief in the possibility of eternal life? Or was it a calculated political program? A way of projecting an image of divine, unassailable power to legitimize his rule as you stand before the young king. You see no politics. You see only a profound and deeply human terror of his own mortality. You are led to your new home and workshop, a large, well-equipped, and heavily guarded compound within the palace walls. You have been given unlimited resources. Chests filled with rare herbs and minerals from every corner of the kingdom are brought to you. A staff of assistants and servants is at your command. You are also, you realize with a chill, a prisoner. Your life, from this moment on, will be dedicated to this single, impossible task. And you know that for a king as ruthless as this one, failure will have only one. Final consequence. A servant brings in the first of your materials. It is a heavy stone box. He opens it. Inside, resting on a bed of silk, is a large, beautiful, and deeply dangerous chunk of raw mineral. It is a brilliant, vermilion red. It is cinnabar, the ore of mercury. You look at the red stone. You know its properties. It is a substance of immense power, in small, carefully prepared doses. It is a potent medicine that can grant a feeling of vitality and warmth. In larger doses, or when handled improperly. It is a deadly poison that brings madness and a slow, agonizing death. It is the cornerstone of the alchemist's art. The great paradox. The substance that holds the promise of eternal life is also a bringer of swift death. You look at the dangerous, beautiful stone, and you know that your long, perilous, and disturbing journey into the heart of an emperor's obsession has just begun. Your new life in the service of the King of Qin is one of gilded imprisonment. You are given a large, well-equipped workshop within the palace complex, a staff of assistants to operate the bellows and tend the fires, and access to the rarest and most expensive materials in the kingdom. But you are also watched. Your every movement monitored by the king's impassive guards. You are a treasured tool, and the king does not let his tools wander. Your great and terrible work begins the search for the elixir of life. The Xiandan. Your workshop becomes a laboratory of fire, smoke, and strange alchemical smells. Great ceramic furnaces, or danlu, are built to your specifications. Designed to hold a steady, intense heat for days on end. You have complex bronze and ceramic vessels for distillation, and water clocks to measure the precise duration of your experiments. Your approach is not one of random guesswork. It is guided by the ancient, secret wisdom of the Taoist masters. You recall the lessons of your own teacher in his mountain hermitage. He taught you that the universe is a living organism, animated by the flow of qi. the vital energy. He taught you that all things resonate with the great principles of yin and yang. And he taught you the core theory of external alchemy. Or, Waidan, the world of men decays. Your master once told you, flesh rots, wood turns to dust. But some substances hold the secret of permanence. Look at gold. It does not tarnish, it does not rust. It is a piece of the sun, perfect and eternal. Look at cinnabar, he had said, holding up the heavy, red stone. Its color is the color of blood, of life. And when you heat it, it gives birth to a magical. Living metal, shoyin, the water silver. Mercury, it flows as if alive, yet it is a metal. To ingest these eternal substances, to purify them and make them a part of yourself, is to absorb their permanence. It is to make your own corruptible flesh as eternal as the gold itself. This is the great work. You must take the raw, toxic power of cinnabar and, through a series of mystical and chemical transformations, purify it of its killing properties and refine it into a single, perfect, life-giving pill. The work is slow, dangerous, and demanding. Workplace safety in your alchemical lab consists mostly of trying not to breathe in the poisonous fumes and hoping that the furnace doesn't explode today. Human resources is not a concept that has been invented yet. You spend your days grinding the brilliant red cinnabar into a fine powder. You mix it with other substances, sulfur, arsenic, lead, each believed to have a powerful effect on the balance of yin and yang. You are attempting to create the legendary nine-fold, cyclically transformed elixir. The theory is that the raw materials must be sealed in a vessel and heated for long periods, then cooled, opened, and the resulting substance ground down and heated again. This process must be repeated 9 times, a powerful magical number, with each turn of the cycle. The substance is said to become more purified, more potent, its deadly yin energy burned away, leaving only the pure, life-giving yang. You, as a student of these arts, know that this process is deeply dangerous. The fumes that leak from the furnaces are poisonous. You see one of your assistants, a young man who is careless about the smoke, begin to develop a tremor in his hands, his mind growing confused and forgetful. You know you are seeing the slow, creeping effects of mercury poisoning, but the King of Qin is not a patient man. He has conquered 2 of the rival kingdoms already, and his ambition grows with each victory. He demands to see progress. He wants a taste of immortality now. You try to explain that the elixir is not yet purified, that it is still in a dangerous, unstable state. But the king will not listen. Then test it. He commands. You are not, of course, to test it on the king himself, or on any valuable member of the court. For this, the king has a ready supply of disposable subjects, condemned prisoners from the palace dungeons. The king is very eager to test your new immortality potion. Thankfully, he has a staff of condemned prisoners to act as official taste testers. It's an effective, if ethically questionable, quality control process. You are brought to a grim, stone-walled chamber. A single prisoner, a man condemned for treason, is brought before you. You are given a small ceramic cup containing a tiny amount of your latest elixir, a substance from the 3rd cycle of transformation. It is a beautiful, shimmering, reddish liquid. You know it is also a deadly poison. You are a man of the Tao, a philosophy of harmony and peace. Your art is meant to be one of healing, of prolonging life. Now, you are being commanded to use it to kill. You want to refuse, but you see the cold, impassive faces of the king's guards. To refuse this command is to join the prisoner on the other side of the cup, with a trembling hand. You give the cup to the prisoner. He is told that if he survives, the king will grant him his freedom. A desperate hope glimmers in the man's eyes. He drinks the elixir in a single gulp. For a moment, nothing happens. Then, The man's eyes go wide. A terrible, violent convulsion seizes his body. He falls to the floor, his limbs thrashing, a strange, metallic foam frothing on his lips. Within a minute, he is still dead. The court physician examines the body and reports to the king's official who is observing. The king is informed of the result. You expect him to be angry, to punish you for your failure, but the message that comes back from the king is one of excitement. He is not disappointed. He is impressed by the power of the elixir. He sees the violent death not as a failure, but as a sign of the substance's immense potency. He believes you are on the right path. He commands you to continue your work, to refine the power, to transform this swift poison into the elixir of eternal life. You return to your workshop, your soul a cold. Dead thing in your chest, you are no longer a healer. You are a poisoner in the service of a tyrant. The memory of the dying prisoner's convulsing body is burned into your mind. You look at your furnaces, at the bubbling, volatile concoctions within them. You no longer see the promise of immortality. You see only different, more elegant forms of death. The pressure from the king intensifies. The demands for new, more potent samples become more frequent, and the line of condemned prisoners waiting to test your failures grows longer. You are trapped in a nightmare of your own making, forced to perfect a poison you know may one day be destined for the lips of the king himself. Years pass. The king of Qin, Yingzheng, has become Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor, through ruthless strategy and overwhelming military force. He has conquered the last of the warring states. He has unified all under heaven, creating a single, vast Chinese empire. He is the most powerful man in the world, and his terror of death has grown with his power. Your work in the alchemical laboratory has continued, a grim and fruitless endeavor. You have refined your techniques. You have created elixirs of a beautiful, shimmering quality. But they are all, simply elegant poisons. The parade of condemned prisoners who test your creations has only confirmed this. You have produced no miracle, and the emperor is growing impatient. It is this impatience that opens the door for a new kind of hope, a new kind of charlatan, a man named Shu Fu, a fangshi or magician from the eastern coastal state of Qi. Arrives at court? He is a man with a silver tongue and a story that the emperor is desperate to hear. You are present in the audience chamber when Shu Fu makes his presentation. He speaks not of the slow, dangerous work of furnaces and minerals. He speaks of a legend, a secret known to the sailors and mystics of the eastern coast. He speaks of 3 mythical islands, floating in the great eastern sea, which are the home of the Taoist immortals. They are called Penglai, Fangzhang, and Yingzhou, Shu Fu says, his voice a hypnotic, storytelling cadence. On these islands, the palaces are made of gold and silver. The animals are all pure white, and the plants of immortality grow in the fields like common weeds. The immortals who live there drink from the streams of the elixir of life and know nothing of death. The emperor is utterly captivated. This is a solution worthy of his status. Why should he, the master of the world, be forced to wait for a humble alchemist to cook a pill in a dirty furnace, when he could simply send his great navy to pluck the fruit of eternal life from a tree after years of trying to make an immortality pill out of poison? The emperor has a new idea: sail east until you find a magic island. It's a much more scenic, if equally unlikely, approach to eternal life. He turns to you. Alchemist, he says, you have labored for years and have produced only death. This man offers me life itself. What say you to this? You know this is a test. You know the stories of Penglai are just sailors' myths, the fantasies of men on long, lonely voyages. But you also know that to contradict the emperor's newfound hope is to invite his wrath. You bow your head. The world is vast, son of heaven. You say carefully. There are many secrets beyond the knowledge of one humble man. It is the only answer you can give. The emperor is pleased. He turns back to Shu Fu. You will lead an expedition, he declares. You will have the finest ships in my navy, the best sailors, and whatever resources you require. You will sail to Penglai and bring me the elixir of the immortals. Shu Fu bows low. The immortals are pure and powerful beings, O August 1. He says smoothly, they will not give up their secrets for mere gold or silk. To show our sincerity, we must bring them a worthy gift, a gift of the purest essence of the empire. We must bring them a tribute of 3,000 young boys and 3,000 young girls to serve them. You feel a chill run down your spine. The request is monstrous, but the emperor, in his obsession, agrees without hesitation. The lives of a few thousand children are a small price to pay for his own eternal life. You, as the court's official expert on immortality, are ordered to join the expedition. Your alchemical work is suspended. Your new job is to accompany this charismatic magician, whom you are almost certain is a fraud, on a great and terrible voyage into the unknown. The preparations take a full year. You travel to the coast and witness the creation of a great fleet. These are not simple fishing boats. They are Laoshan, great tower ships with multiple decks and vast sails, capable of carrying hundreds of people. While the ships are built, the emperor's agents go out across the empire, levying the terrible tribute of children. You see them arrive at the port city, a great, bewildered, and terrified river of youth, separated from their families forever. The supplies for the trip include food, water, silk, and thousands of children to give to the immortals as a gift. You're starting to feel like you're part of a very strange and very large-scale kidnapping. The day of departure is a grand and solemn affair. Great sacrifices are made to the gods of the sea. The emperor himself is there to see you off. Shu Fu stands on the deck of the flagship, looking for all the world like a great admiral. You stand beside him, your heart a cold stone of dread. The great fleet sets sail, moving out of the harbor and onto the vast, gray, and empty expanse of the eastern sea. You are sailing off the edge of the known world. The weeks turn into months. You sail east, always east. The initial excitement of the sailors and the children fades, replaced by the monotonous, soul-crushing reality of a long sea voyage. You see nothing but the endless, empty horizon of the sea. There are no magical islands. There are no palaces of gold. There is only the wind, the water, and the slow passage of time. Shu Fu, the great magician, is a master of evasion. He performs elaborate divinations with the stars and the currents, always insisting that the mythical island is just over the horizon, always just a few more days away. You watch him, and your suspicion that he is the greatest charlatan in history deepens. Future historians will debate his true motives. Was he a true believer, or was he a clever man who used the emperor's obsession to get himself a massive fleet and thousands of followers, with which he simply intended to sail away and found a new colony of his own? Perhaps in the distant islands of Japan, you are convinced of the latter. He is not searching for an island. He is escaping an emperor. Your own role is a pointless one. You spend your days charting the empty sea, documenting the weather, and trying to keep the dwindling medical supplies in order. You are an alchemist with no laboratory, a scholar with nothing new to study. You sit on the deck of the great ship, watching the endless gray waves. You have been at sea for a year. You are in the middle of nowhere, on a fool's errand, with a fleet full of children who will never see their homes again, led by a man who is almost certainly a liar. The Emperor's grand quest to find the immortals has led you to this vast, empty, and profound loneliness. The great ships of the Imperial fleet sail east, and the green, familiar coast of the Qin Empire sinks beneath the horizon. And then it is gone. You are now in a new world, a world of endless, gray-green water under an endless, empty sky. The first weeks are filled with a strange kind of hope. The sailors and the thousands of young boys and girls on board look to the eastern horizon with eager eyes, expecting to see the golden palaces of the mythical island of Penglai rise from the sea at any moment. But the days turn into weeks, and the weeks turn into months, and there is nothing. only the sea. The initial hope begins to curdle into a grim, monotonous routine. Your life is governed by the rhythm of the ship, the changing of the watches, the rationing of the food, the constant, wearying work of maintaining the sails and the rigging. The voyage grinds on, and the true cost of the Emperor's fantasy becomes clear. A great storm, a typhoon, descends upon your fleet for 3 days. The world is a nightmare of howling wind, monstrous waves, and the terrifying groaning of your ship's timbers. You are a landsman, an alchemist, and you are convinced you will die. When the storm finally passes, you learn that 2 of the ships in your fleet, with all their crew and all their cargo of children, have vanished without a trace. Sickness begins to sweep through the crowded, unsanitary conditions on the ships. A fever takes dozens of the children. You do what you can with your alchemist's knowledge of herbs, but your remedies are for the subtle imbalances of the body, not for the brutal diseases of a long sea voyage. More of the Emperor's tribute is buried at sea. You have now been at sea for 3 years, searching for a magic island. You haven't found it, but you have discovered 3 new kinds of seasickness and 50 new ways to cook salted fish. The educational value of the trip is immense. Through it all, the magician Shu Fu remains a figure of unshakable confidence. He is a master of performance. Each time the crew's morale plummets, he performs a great and showy divination. He consults the ancient patterns of the I Ching. He reads the dragon lines of the ocean currents. He interprets the flight of a seabird, and his conclusion is always the same: they are close. The immortals are aware of your coming. He insists, and they are testing your resolve. Your own relationship with him is one of quiet, mutual contempt. He knows you are a skeptic, a man of science in his own way, and he sees you as a threat to his authority. You, in turn, see him as a magnificent fraud, a man who has conned the most powerful emperor in the world into giving him a fleet and a small army of followers. One day, you find him alone on the high deck of the tower ship, and you confront him. There is no island, is there, you say, your voice a quiet statement. Shu Fu looks out at the empty sea, a small, unreadable smile on his face. Belief is a powerful current. Alchemist, he says. The Emperor believes, therefore, for a time, the island is real. He then looks at you, his smile gone, his eyes cold. And a wise man does not swim against such a current. He would be wise to remember that. The threat is clear. You are as much his prisoner as you are the Emperor's, after years at sea, with supplies running low and the crew on the verge of open mutiny. Shu Fu knows his charade is reaching its end. He lands the fleet on a large, uninhabited, but fertile island to replenish your water and food. He declares that this is a great success. It is not Penglai itself, he announces, but one of its lesser, outlying islands, a suburban island of the immortals. He performs his greatest and most theatrical divination yet. He declares that the immortals have sent him a message in a dream. They are pleased with the Emperor's gift, but the tribute of children is not enough. The Emperor's own heart, they have told him, is not yet pure enough to receive the gift of immortality. Shu Fu must return to China to report his findings and to instruct the Emperor on the necessary rituals of purification. It is a brilliant excuse, a masterpiece of blame-shifting and self-preservation. It is not his failure, it is the Emperor's. And so, the long, futile, and tragic voyage comes to an end. The tattered remnants of the great fleet turn back west, back towards a home that most of the young people on board can no longer even remember, as you finally sight the coast of the Qin Empire. You look at the faces of the children who have survived. They are adolescents now, young men and women whose entire formative years have been spent on the deck of a ship, chasing a ghost. They have no other life, no other skill. They are a lost generation, sacrificed not to a god, but to a story, You stand on the deck next to Shu Fu as the ship sails into the harbor. He is already practicing the grand, apologetic, and ultimately flattering speech he will give to the emperor. You know that your ordeal is far from over. The dangers of the vast, empty sea are about to be replaced by the sharp, intricate, and far more personal dangers of the imperial court. And you are about to face an emperor who has been denied his prize and will be looking for someone to blame. You return to the imperial court in Xianyang not as a triumphant hero, but as a survivor of a colossal failure. The great expedition to find the Isles of the Immortals, which departed with such pomp and promise, has limped back to port with its fleet tattered and its mission a complete and utter embarrassment. You stand in the great audience hall, your head bowed, expecting the emperor's fury. The magician, Shu Fu, is a master of political theater. He gives a long, eloquent, and deeply sorrowful report. He speaks of the great storms, of the terrible sea monsters, of the immense power of the immortal spirits who guard their island home. And then he delivers his masterstroke of an excuse. "O son of heaven," he says, his voice full of feigned regret. "The immortals are aware of your greatness, but they say the tribute we brought was not enough. They require a greater show of sincerity, and they say that your own spirit has not yet been sufficiently purified to receive the gift of eternal life. The elixir is real, but you are not yet ready for it. The Emperor is told that the magic Immortality Island is real, but he's just not pure enough to visit yet. He completely believes it. Instead of executing the magician, he decides to redecorate his palace. The Emperor, a man whose ego is as vast as his empire, is both angered and intrigued. He is a true believer in this magic, and Shu Fu's explanation that the failure was not in the quest, but in his own spiritual inadequacy is a challenge he cannot ignore. He dismisses Shu Fu, not in disgrace, but with a new commission to prepare for a second, even grander, voyage. Then, the Emperor's cold, intense gaze falls upon you. You, the alchemist, have also failed. Your furnaces have produced only poison, and the great voyage you were part of has produced only excuses. You brace yourself for the death sentence, but the failure of the expedition, combined with several recent attempts on his life, has pushed the Emperor's fear of death into a new and more immediate realm. He has become consumed by a deep and profound paranoia. He sees assassins in every shadow and curses in every ill omen. The elixir may be far away, the Emperor says, his voice a low, dangerous hiss. But death is near. My enemies are everywhere. While I wait for eternal life, you will ensure that I do not meet an early end. You will turn your knowledge from the arts of immortality to the arts of preservation. Your life is spared, but your job description has changed. You are no longer just an alchemist. You are now the Emperor's consultant on supernatural security. Your first task is to assist in the design of his new, magnificent, and terrifyingly vast palace complex at Apong, just outside the capital. It is not to be just a home. It is to be a fortress against death itself. Your new job is Imperial Supernatural Security Advisor. Your duties include designing ghost-proof hallways and ensuring the Emperor's bedroom is aligned with the correct constellations to ward off evil spirits. It's a very specialized form of interior design. You are now a collaborator with the Empire's greatest architects and engineers. They are concerned with wood, stone, and manpower. You are concerned with spirits, curses, and the flow of qi. The Emperor's architectural demands are born of his paranoia. He commands that the new palace complex be a sprawling labyrinth of hundreds of interconnected buildings and pavilions. I will sleep in a different chamber every night, he declares. No one, not my guards, not my concubines, not even my chief minister will ever know my precise location. An assassin cannot strike a target he cannot find. He then gives you your most important and bizarre task. He wants to be able to move between his many palaces without ever being seen by the public, or even by the heavens. He believes that evil spirits and sorcerers can attack him by observing his movements. You will design a network of hidden passages. He commands, elevated, covered walkways between the rooftops, and subterranean tunnels. I must be able to move like a spirit, unseen, unheard. Only then can I hope to commune with the true immortals. You are now forced to become a designer of secret passages and ghost-proof corridors? You, a Taoist who believes in harmony with the natural world, are now complicit in the construction of the most unnatural and hubristic building project in history. You work with the imperial architects. Your knowledge of alchemy and cosmology now applied to the orientation of hallways and the placement of doors. The entire palace is to be a great magical machine, aligned with the North Star, the pivot of the heavens, making the Emperor's throne room the literal center of the universe. Future historians will debate the true purpose of this great palace. Was it a practical fortress against assassination, a megalomaniacal display of power, or the physical manifestation of one man's profound terror of the unseen world you, who must now attend the nightly planning sessions? Know the truth. It is all three. It is a monument built on a foundation of pure, unadulterated fear. The Emperor wants a palace so large and confusing that no one ever knows where he is. It's a brilliant security strategy. Though you suspect the Emperor himself probably gets lost in it all the time, you stand on the vast construction site, a landscape of raw earth and the ant-like swarm of 100,000 conscripted laborers. The foundations of the great, paranoid palace are being laid. You have survived the Emperor's wrath after your failed voyage, and you have found a strange, new, and unsettling purpose in his court. But as you watch the great timbers being raised and the first stones being laid, you know that this is only a temporary reprieve. The Emperor is building walls to protect his body, but his true obsession, the desire for a magic pill to protect his soul, has not gone away. As you design his physical fortress against the dangers of this world, you know that soon you will be commanded to return to your alchemical laboratory, to once again begin brewing the sweet, deadly poisons of the next. Your work on the Emperor's labyrinthine palace continues, a project of such immense scale and complexity that it consumes years of your life. You become a master of paranoid architecture, designing winding corridors, hidden chambers, and secret passageways, all to soothe the anxieties of a man who trusts no one. But the Emperor's fear is not confined to the walls of his own home. He sees his entire, newly unified empire as a fortress that must be defended, not just from mortal armies, but from the spiritual chaos that lies beyond its borders. You are summoned to a great council with the Emperor's chief generals and ministers. The topic is the security of the northern frontier. The generals speak of the Xiongnu, the fierce nomadic horsemen of the steppes, a constant and very real military threat. They propose strengthening and connecting the existing defensive walls built by the old warring states into a single, unified barrier. The Emperor listens, but his gaze is distant, focused on something beyond mere military strategy. He turns to you, the alchemist, the man who understands the unseen world. The Xiongnu are wolves, the Emperor says, his voice a low hiss. But it is the cold wind that blows from their lands that I fear more. It is a wind of chaos, a wind filled with the hungry ghosts of the barbarian dead and the demons of the barren steppes. Our wall must be more than a barrier of earth and stone. It must be a magical seal. It must be a great stone dragon, whose spine will protect the civilized world from the darkness. Your Emperor isn't just building a wall to keep out the neighbors. He's building a 10,000-li-long magical ghost fence to keep out all the evil spirits of the north. It's an ambitious piece of supernatural infrastructure, and so your duties are expanded once more. You are now a consultant on the spiritual engineering of what will become the Great Wall. You are tasked with ensuring this colossal undertaking is in harmony with the cosmic currents. You instruct the engineers to follow the dragon lines of the mountains, to align the wall with the natural flow of the Earth's qi. You design protective talismans, inscribed with Taoist sigils of power, to be buried in the foundations of the great watchtowers, sealing them against spiritual attack. To oversee this work, you must travel to the northern frontier. The journey takes you through the heart of the empire, and you witness the terrible human cost of the emperor's grand projects. The roads are filled with long, shuffling lines of conscripted laborers, peasants, criminals, disgraced scholars, all being marched north to work on the wall. They are an army of ants, sent to build a monument for a dragon. The construction site itself is a vision of hell. Hundreds of thousands of men labor under the watchful eyes of ruthless Qin soldiers. The work is brutal, relentless, and unforgiving. The men work in the freezing cold of winter and the scorching heat of summer. Accidents are common. Disease is rampant. Death is a daily event. You learn the grim folklore that is already growing up around the wall's construction. The workers whisper that every stone in the wall costs a human life, and they say that the men who die here are not given a proper burial. Their bodies are simply thrown into the great trench, and the wall is built over them, their bones becoming part of the fill. Future archaeologists will find little evidence for this, but the legend is a powerful one. For the men who are forced to labor here, the wall is not a glorious monument. It is the longest cemetery in the world. The main building materials are earth, stone, and a truly staggering number of dead peasants. It's not the most ethical construction project, but the scale is impressive. You stand on a high, newly completed watchtower, the wind whistling in your ears. The Great Wall snakes away from you in both directions, a gray stone ribbon clinging to the crests of the rugged mountains, disappearing into the hazy distance. It is an awesome, brutal, and magnificent sight, a testament to the Emperor's will, a clear and undeniable line drawn between the ordered, agricultural world of China and the vast, chaotic wilderness of the steppes. Future historians will debate its purpose. Was it a military barrier? A political statement? You who have heard the Emperor's own words, know the deepest truth. It is a work of magic, a 10,000-li talisman designed to seal an entire empire against the ghosts of its creator's mind. You have helped to build a fortress for a man who is at war with the entire universe. But you know that the true enemy, the one the Emperor fears most, is not the Xiongnu from the north, nor the demons that ride the wind. The true enemy is time. It is death, and that is a foe that no wall, no matter how long or how high, can ever keep out as you stand on the windswept frontier. A messenger arrives from the capital. You are to return to Xianyang at once. The Emperor's fear has turned inward again. He has decided that the threats to his life and his legacy come not just from outside the borders, but from the words and ideas within them. His paranoia is about to take a new and even more destructive turn. You return from the vast, windswept frontier of the Great Wall to the capital, Xianyang. You expect to be praised for your work on the Great Magical Seal, but you find the atmosphere in the Imperial Court is colder and more paranoid than ever. The Emperor's fear, having been projected outwards to the edges of his empire, has now turned inward, like a scorpion stinging itself. You discover that in your absence. The hardline legalist ministers, led by the shrewd and ruthless Li Si, have gained the Emperor's complete trust. They have convinced him that the true threat to his eternal reign is not the spirits of the North, but the scholars and thinkers within his own borders. You are present at a court assembly when Li Si makes his great, terrible speech. He argues that the Empire, while now unified by force of arms, is still divided in its mind. He speaks of scholars who use the past to criticize the present, who praise the feudal virtues of the old Zhou dynasty to undermine the Emperor's new. Centralized power. He speaks of wandering philosophers and their useless and confusing ideas that promote dissent, and he speaks of the alchemist and the fangxi, the magicians. He speaks of their grand promises and their constant failures to produce an elixir of life. He calls them charlatans and tricksters who are a drain on the imperial treasury and a mockery of the emperor's sacred quest. The emperor, his face a mask of cold fury, listens to every word. His fear of death and his obsession with control have now fused into a single, monstrous paranoia. He sees knowledge as a weapon that can be used against him. He sees dissent not as a debate, but as a curse. And he decides to act. A great and terrible edict is issued. You are in your office when you are given the scroll to read and record. Your hands tremble as you read the words. The emperor commands that all private libraries in the empire be confiscated. All books of philosophy, of poetry, of history save for the official. Sanitized history of the state of Qin are to be gathered and burned in great pyres. The only books to be spared are the practical manuals of agriculture, of medicine, and of divination. The emperor has decided that the biggest threat to the empire is not the barbarian hordes, but books. His new policy is a nationwide book-burning party. As a scholar, you feel this is a step in the wrong direction, but the edict is followed by an even more horrifying act. The emperor declares that the scholars and magicians who have deluded the people and slandered his rule must be made an example of. A great purge begins. You hear the whispers in the palace. Stories so terrible you can barely believe them. Over 460 scholars, alchemists, and magicians have been rounded up, and they have been executed, not by the sword, but by being buried alive in a great pit in the palace grounds. A wave of pure terror sweeps through the intellectual circles of the court. You are a scholar. Your own workshop and your private chambers are filled with the very Taoist and alchemical texts that are now considered heretical. You are a magician who has, so far, failed to make the emperor immortal. The emperor has just executed several hundred other magicians for failing to make him immortal. You decide it's a very good time to keep a low profile and look busy. You know you must act that night, under the cover of darkness. You perform a desperate act of preservation. You go through your own precious library, the scrolls and bamboo slips you have spent a lifetime collecting. You select the most important, the most secret texts, the ancient alchemical formulas, the profound philosophical works of Laozi and Zhuangzi. You cannot bear to see them burn. You wrap them in oiled silk to protect them from the damp, and in the dead of night, you take them to the vast, ongoing construction site of the Apong Palace, in a section of the wall in a forgotten corridor, a place you yourself designed. You carefully remove the stones, create a hidden cavity, and you place your precious, forbidden library inside. You then seal the wall up again, leaving no trace. You spend the night secretly burying your priceless library of ancient, mystical texts in a hole in the ground. It's a sad day for scholarship, but a good day for not being executed by a paranoid emperor. The next day, the book burners arrive at your workshop with a heart of stone. You watch as they take your remaining, less important texts and haul them away to the great pyres that are now burning day and night in the city square. The air over the capital is thick with the smoke of 1,000 years of accumulated wisdom. A fearful silence descends upon the empire. The 100 schools of thought that had blossomed during the Warring States period are now extinguished. There is only one voice left. One philosophy, the iron. Unforgiving rule of legalism. You survived the purge. Your work on the Emperor's palaces and the Great Wall has proven your usefulness. But you are now more of a prisoner than ever. You live and work in an atmosphere of absolute terror. Your life dependent on the whims of a tyrant who has just murdered hundreds of your colleagues. You stand in your workshop. The smoke from the book pyre is still acrid in the air. You have saved your most precious knowledge, but you are now the keeper of a dangerous and forbidden secret. The Emperor, in his paranoia, has destroyed all the other paths to immortality he has been offered. And you know, with a cold and sinking certainty, that his gaze will now turn back to you, back to the single, obsessive hope he has left. he will turn back to the strange, seductive, and deadly promise of the poisonous elixir. The smoke from the great book pyres has cleared, but the intellectual and spiritual life of the empire has been reduced to ashes in this new, silent world of absolute obedience. The emperor, having eliminated all other voices and all other hopes, turns his full, obsessive attention back to you. He summons you to his private chambers. He is older now, and for the first time, you can see the faint traces of weariness in his face, the small signs of the mortality that haunts him. The failure of the great sea voyage and the purge of the scholars has not sated his fear. It has honed it to a razor's edge. The charlatans have been swept away, he says, his voice a low, dangerous whisper. The foolish words of the philosophers have been silenced. Only the great work remains. You, my alchemist, are my last and best hope. You will not fail me. He gives you a final ultimatum. You are to cease all other duties. You are to dedicate your every waking moment to perfecting the elixir, and he will no longer be content to test it on prisoners. He is too impatient. He believes his own divine body, the body of the Son of Heaven, is the only vessel strong enough to withstand the potencies of the final transformation. He commands you to prepare a dose for him. You are trapped. This is the moment you have been dreading for years. Your secret Taoist texts, the ones you saved from the fire, speak with absolute clarity on this matter. They warn that the elixirs of cinnabar and lead are a dangerous, double-edged sword. That to seek immortality through these external substances is a perilous and often fatal path. You know, with the certainty of a scholar and the evidence of the dead prisoners you have witnessed, that the elixir of life is, in fact, a slow, sweet poison. Sweet. To tell him the truth would be suicide. To admit that your life's work, his life's great hope, is a deadly fraud would earn you a slow and painful death in his dungeons. To refuse his command is treason. Your only path to survival is to obey. You must become the willing accomplice in the poisoning of your own emperor. You return to your laboratory. You spend a month in a state of quiet. Focused despair. You perform the final ninefold purification of the cinnabar. You create your masterpiece of alchemy. It is a thing of terrible beauty. A collection of small, shimmering, red pills, as bright as dragon's blood. You present them to the emperor in a carved jade box. You explain that he is to take one pill each day, and that the transformation will be a slow and sometimes difficult process. The emperor takes his first dose with a solemn, ritualistic fervor. You watch, your heart a cold stone, as he swallows the first small seed of his own death. For the first few weeks, it seems a miracle has occurred. The elixir, a potent concoction of mercury, does have an initial, invigorating effect. The emperor declares that he feels a new warmth in his blood, a new vitality in his limbs. He is overjoyed. He believes it is working. He showers you with honors. You are hailed as the greatest alchemist in the history of the empire. You are being celebrated for slowly murdering the most powerful man in the world. Your career has taken a very strange and very dangerous turn. But then the slow, sweet poison begins its real work. The emperor's health, after the initial surge, begins a slow, inexorable decline. His skin, once healthy, takes on a strange, pale, almost metallic sheen. He suffers from terrible pains in his stomach, which he dismisses as the mortal humors being burned away. His hands begin to have a fine, almost imperceptible tremor. The most profound effect is on his mind. The paranoia that has always been a part of him now blossoms into a full-blown madness. His temper becomes terrifyingly erratic. He flies into rages over the smallest perceived slight. He trusts no one. He has his chief ministers followed. He orders the execution of a dozen eunuchs for whispering in a corridor. You and the court physicians watch this decline with a growing, secret terror. But you are all trapped in the emperor's narrative of his own deification. Every symptom of his poisoning is reinterpreted as a sign of his glorious transformation. His rages are not madness. They are the divine fury of a living god. His stomach pains are not a sickness. They are his mortal organs transforming into immortal ones. His growing confusion and memory loss are not a sign of his mind decaying. They are a sign of his spirit beginning to detach itself from the petty concerns of the mortal world. The Emperor is now taking your immortality pills daily. His symptoms include a terrible temper, wild paranoia, and stomach cramps. He's convinced this is the feeling of his mortal body transforming into that of a god. It seems the process of becoming a deity is very unpleasant. You live in a state of constant, gnawing fear. You know the truth. You know that you are the cause of the Emperor's decline. You know that if he dies, the powerful ministers like Li Si, who have always been jealous of your influence, will not see it as a natural consequence of your elixir. They will accuse you of deliberate assassination by poison. Your success is leading you directly to your own execution. In the spring, the Emperor, buoyed by the false energy of the elixir, announces that he will undertake a grand inspection tour of his empire. He wishes to show his people his new divine vitality and to search for other magicians who might have secrets to aid his final transformation. And he commands that you, his great alchemist, must accompany him, and you must bring a fresh and plentiful supply of his life-giving medicine. You are now a prisoner on a grand, imperial tour. You travel in the Emperor's immense entourage, a mobile city of thousands of soldiers, officials, and servants. You ride in your own fine carriage. But it is a cage. Each day, you are summoned to the Emperor's presence to present him with his daily dose of poison. And each day, you see him a little weaker, a little more unhinged, his mind wandering, his hands trembling. You are traveling across the great, unified empire that this man has forged. But you are not seeing its glory. You are the sole, silent witness to the secret. Decaying heart of it all, you are a man on a journey with a dying god, a god who believes he is on the verge of achieving eternal life. Thanks to the slow, sweet poison you feed him with your own two hands, the great imperial tour grinds on, a slow-moving parade of denial. You travel across the vastness of the empire, from the great rivers of the Central Plains to the shores of the Eastern Sea. The Emperor is a man at war with his own body, but he refuses to admit defeat at every stop. He consults with local magicians and mystics, desperately seeking a new path to immortality, a different elixir that might succeed where yours has so obviously failed. But their remedies are the same as yours, or weaker. His hope dwindles, and his paranoia and rage grow as he feels his physical body failing him. His obsession shifts. If he cannot remain in this world forever, he will ensure that he rules the next one with the same absolute power. His thoughts turn constantly to the one project that has been the work of his entire reign, his tomb, his great mausoleum, which has been under construction for over 30 years near the capital, is no longer just a final resting place in his mind. It is his new, eternal empire. From his portable throne on the road, he sends a constant stream of frantic, detailed, and megalomaniacal commands back to his chief minister, Li Si, and the architects overseeing the construction. You, as his expert on the supernatural and the only man to whom he has confessed his deepest fears, become his unwilling confidant in his feverish, sleepless nights. He describes his vision for the afterlife to you, and the scale of it is so immense it borders on madness. He speaks of his army. An emperor cannot travel to the spirit world alone, he hisses, his eyes burning with a strange fire. He describes the thousands upon thousands of life-size terracotta soldiers that are being crafted and placed in the pits surrounding his tomb. He is not just taking a few guards to the afterlife, he's taking an entire, life-sized army of 8,000 men. It seems he's planning a major military campaign against the gods of the underworld on day one. He gives orders that they are to be armed with real, working bronze crossbows and sharp halberds. "My army will conquer the underworld for me," he declares. He then describes the central burial chamber, the heart of his new universe. "The roof," he says, "is a map of the heavens. We have inlaid it with pearls and precious gems to represent the sun, the moon, and all the constellations, so that my spirit will never lose its way. And the floor," he continues, his voice dropping with awe at his own vision. "The floor is a map of my empire, a perfect model of all the lands under heaven, with all the mountains and the cities." He leans closer, his breath hot and foul. "And the rivers. Alchemist, the rivers are the most important part. I have commanded that the Great Yellow River and the Yangtze be recreated, not with paint or sand, with pure flowing mercury, 100 rivers of quicksilver, all mechanically driven, to flow forever in an eternal silver sea. You, an alchemist who knows the profound toxicity of mercury, are stunned into silence. To create rivers of the substance would require a quantity so vast it would empty the minds of the empire. It would be a landscape of breathtaking beauty and deadly, poisonous vapor. The emperor's plan for his tomb includes a complete map of China on the floor, complete with rivers made of actual, flowing liquid mercury. As his alchemist, you're both impressed by the ambition and deeply concerned about the environmental impact. Future historians will read this account, written by the great historian Sima Xian a century after the emperor's death, and they will debate its feasibility. Could such a thing have been built, you, with your knowledge of mechanics and alchemy? Sketch out possibilities in your secret journal. Water wheels, perhaps? Turning in a sealed chamber, driving the heavy liquid metal. It is possible, you conclude. Monstrously difficult, incredibly dangerous. But possible. The emperor's paranoid vision for his tomb does not end there. "The lamps of my palace," he tells you, "will be fueled with the oil of the mermaid, the great fish of the eastern sea. For it is said that a lamp of this oil will burn forever and never be extinguished. And the doors," he adds, a cruel, thin smile on his lips, "will be guarded. I have commanded my engineers to build automatic crossbows, rigged to fire upon any who would dare to enter and disturb my eternal sleep. It's a very advanced security system, and also a good way to make sure your spirit is never, ever disturbed by visitors." You listen to this, and you understand the full, terrible scope of the emperor's obsession. He has failed to conquer death, so he has decided to build a perfect, hermetically sealed, and heavily armed replica of the universe, with himself at its center, and lock himself inside it for all eternity. It is the grandest, most magnificent, and most miserable act of surrender in the history of the world. The imperial tour continues its slow, ponderous way across the empire. But the emperor is now visibly dying. The mercury elixirs you have been feeding him have done their work. His skin is sallow, his hands tremble constantly, and his mind is a labyrinth of paranoia and feverish dreams of his own afterlife. The end comes at a place called Shakyu, a remote outpost hundreds of miles from the capital. The emperor's illness takes a final, catastrophic turn. The court physicians are helpless. You are summoned to his bedside. He is barely conscious. He looks at you, his eyes clouded with confusion, and he asks for one more dose of the elixir of life. You look at the dying tyrant, the man who unified a nation, who built the Great Wall, who burned the books, and who is now being killed by his own desperate desire to live forever. You mix a simple, harmless herbal sleeping draught and give it to him. He drinks it, and a few hours later, he dies. He, the first emperor of China, the man who sought to conquer death, has died on the road, in a dusty, provincial town, as far from his magnificent, unfinished, and eternal underground empire as it is possible to be. The first emperor of China is dead. He has died in a dusty, provincial outpost, hundreds of miles from his capital, his spirit now on its own long journey. For you, the alchemist, a moment of profound and terrifying relief washes over you. Your long, dangerous service is over. The man you have been slowly poisoning is gone, but your ordeal is far from finished. The moment the Emperor takes his last breath, a new and more dangerous chapter begins. The only other people present in the room are the Emperor's most powerful and trusted advisors, the Chief Minister, Li Si, and the Chief Eunuch, Zhao Gao. They look at the dead Emperor, and then they look at each other. You see in their eyes not grief, but a swift and cold calculation. Li Si knows that the Emperor's chosen heir is his eldest son, the capable and popular Fu Su, who is currently guarding the northern frontier. But Li Si's great rival is Fu Su's trusted general, if Fu Su becomes emperor. Li Si's own power, and perhaps his life, will be forfeit. Zhao Gao, the eunuch, also fears the strong-willed Fu Su and prefers the emperor's younger, more pliable son, Hu Hai. They make a decision in that silent, terrible room. The emperor's death must be kept a secret. They will forge the emperor's will, ordering Fu Su to commit suicide and naming the younger son, Hu Hai, as the new emperor. But to do this, they must get back to the capital before the news of the death leaks out. They must transport the emperor's body across the empire, pretending he is still alive. And you, the alchemist, the man who knows the secrets of preservation and decay, are now their unwilling and essential accomplice. Your job has been downgraded from imperial alchemist to royal deodorizer. You're using all your mystical knowledge of rare herbs and resins to try and make a dead emperor smell slightly less dead. It is not working. Thus begins the most bizarre and macabre procession in the history of the empire. The emperor's body is placed in his magnificent, enclosed imperial carriage. He is propped up on his throne, with scrolls laid out before him, as if he is merely working on affairs of state. The blinds are drawn. The charade begins. The entire imperial entourage, an army of thousands, begins the long, slow journey back to the capital. They do not know their living god is a decaying corpse. The daily rituals of the court are maintained with a terrifying precision. Each morning, officials come to the carriage to make their reports. Li Si goes inside, has a silent conversation with the dead emperor, and then emerges to issue the day's edicts. Food and wine are brought to the carriage for the emperor's meals and are later discreetly removed, untouched. Your job is the most grim of all. In the dead of night, you are secretly brought to the carriage. You must do what you can to fight the inevitable decay. You burn immense quantities of the most fragrant and expensive incense inside the carriage. You pack the emperor's robes with preserving herbs and spices, but the summer heat is relentless, and the laws of nature are more powerful than any emperor. After a week, the smell begins. A faint, sweetish, sickly odor of putrefaction starts to emanate from the imperial carriage. The guards closest to it exchange nervous, confused glances. This is when Li Si makes his most brilliant and disgusting decision. He issues a new edict in the dead emperor's name. The emperor, he announces, has developed a sudden craving for the taste of salted fish from the coast. A special decree is sent out, and a great cart, piled high with barrels of salted, half-rotting fish, is brought to join the procession. It is ordered to travel directly behind the emperor's own carriage. It is a stroke of grotesque genius. The powerful, overpowering stench of the rotting fish successfully masks the even more terrible smell of the rotting emperor. It's a bold lie, but at this point, no one is brave enough to question the emperor's new, very smelly hobby. You travel with this spectral, stinking procession for weeks. You are a prisoner of your own terrible secret, a key conspirator in a great political coup and a macabre funeral cover-up. You are overwhelmed by the profound and terrible irony of it all. This was the man who built a 10,000-lie wall to keep death out. This was the man who drank poison in the hope of living forever. This was the man who designed a perfect, eternal, hermetically sealed tomb to preserve his body in a universe of liquid mercury, and he has ended his great quest here as a decaying corpse. Propped up on a pillow, stinking so badly that his own ministers must hide the smell with a wagon load of rotten fish. It is the most miserable, most undignified, and most absolute failure imaginable. And so your story, the story of the alchemist who sought the elixir of life, comes to its end. The procession finally reaches the capital. The conspiracy succeeds. The false will is read. The younger son is placed on the throne, and the emperor's body is at last laid to rest in his magnificent, secret tomb, surrounded by his silent clay army. But the empire, built on the will of one man, cannot survive his ignominious end. The new emperor is weak, and the ministers who placed him on the throne are consumed by their own intrigues. The dynasty you were forced to serve, the great and terrible Qin dynasty, collapses into civil war within a few short years of its founder's death. The great quest for immortality has resulted only in a secret, stinking corpse, a murdered heir, and a fallen empire. Let the memory of that grand and terrible folly now fade. The emperor is in his tomb. His terracotta soldiers are still waiting silently in the darkness, guarding a master who will never again issue a command. His rivers of mercury are still. The great paranoid palaces are dust. All that is left of his desperate war against death is a quiet, grassy mound and one of the greatest, most miserable stories ever told. The fear of death is a powerful thing, but the story of the first emperor is a quiet, final reminder that the only true immortality is to be remembered, and the only true peace is to accept the end when it comes. Let that peace now settle over you. There are no more elixirs. There are no more ghosts. There is only the quiet of your room and the gentle, natural promise of a good night's sleep